The boarding area buzzed with that familiar airport tension, delayed announcements, overpriced coffee, people checking their phones for gate updates every 30 seconds. Gate A23. Flight 77 to Atlanta. First-class boarding had just begun when he walked in. Mid-50s. Clean-shaven. Immaculate navy blue suit. Leather attaché in one hand. Boarding pass in the other. His name was Derek Langston. And if anyone had paid closer attention, they might have recognized him. But they didn't. To them, he was just another black man in a nice suit. The woman behind the counter barely looked up. Group 1? Derek nodded politely. Yes, ma'am. She scanned his pass and gave a practiced smile. Enjoy your flight. He stepped onto the jet bridge. Inside the plane, the cabin was still half empty. The crisp leather seats of first class gleamed under the soft lights. Derek found 1A, window seat, front row. He set down his bag, adjusted his blazer, and sat. Then it started. A stewardess approached. Blonde. Mid-30s. Bright red lipstick and the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Excuse me, sir. I think you're in the wrong seat. Derek looked up calmly. No, ma'am. 1A, right here. She frowned. Are you sure? He handed her the boarding pass. She stared at it for a long beat. Then again. Oh, she said finally. Well, okay then. But the way she walked off. Like something had gone wrong. Like he wasn't supposed to be there. Minutes passed. More passengers boarded. Then came the couple. White. Late 40s. She had pearls. He had a Rolex. They paused near 1A. She pointed. Excuse me, she said loudly. That's our seat. Derek looked up again. I don't think so. The man huffed. This is 1A and 1B. We booked them together. Derek didn't move. I'm in 1A. Your tickets might be for the next row. The woman turned to the flight attendant, who had quietly returned. This man is in our seat. The attendant looked nervous. She checked all 3 boarding passes. And then, she hesitated. Well, according to this, Mr. Langston is in the correct seat. The woman's voice dropped to a hiss. Then there's been some kind of mistake. These are first class. These seats are for executive travelers. Not. She didn't finish the sentence. But she didn't have to. Because everyone heard the pause. Everyone saw the look. And Derek? He just sat still. Didn't flinch. Didn't argue. The husband stepped forward. Look, he probably used miles. Or one of those discount upgrades. Maybe someone else booked it for him. Just move him. Quietly. That was when the attendant leaned in. And whispered something. Something that made Derek's jaw tighten. Then she straightened and turned back toward him. I'm sorry, sir, but I'm going to have to ask you to move. The cabin fell silent. He stared at her. I already told you. I'm in the correct seat. Her voice grew colder. This section is reserved for preferred clientele. I'm sure Coach will accommodate you just fine. He stood slowly, reached into his breast pocket, pulled out a sleek black leather card holder, then handed over a card. Corporate preferred. Executive Platinum. The woman read it. And paled. But before she could speak, the pilot emerged from the cockpit. Is there a problem here? He asked. The couple jumped in. He's refusing to move. He's causing a scene. The attendant added. He's not cooperating. Derek said nothing. The pilot looked him up and down. Then turned to the attendant. Have him removed. Now. And just like that. Security was called. The terminal echoed with the soft hum of travel. Gate agents murmured boarding instructions. Luggage rolled. Babies cried in the distance. And then, everything stopped. Because 2 TSA officers were now standing in the first-class cabin of Flight 77. One of them gestured to Derek. Sir, we need you to come with us. Derek didn't raise his voice. Didn't argue. He just asked, one last time. Why? The stewardess stepped in. "You're disturbing the peace. We've had multiple complaints." The couple behind her smirked. The woman folded her arms, pleased. The man gave a quiet chuckle. "Finally." And the passengers, most looked away. A few watched with quiet curiosity. But no one stood up. Not yet. Derek looked around. Then nodded. He stood. Picked up his bag. Walked past the couple, slowly. The woman muttered just loud enough. "Figures." And the moment those words hit the air, the entire cabin felt it. Ugly. Racist. Deliberate. But the flight crew did nothing. The TSA agents led him back up the jet bridge, where 2 airport police officers were waiting. A supervisor approached, young, flustered. "Sir, can you tell us what happened?" Before Derek could answer, the stewardess burst in. "He was aggressive. Loud. Refused to comply." One of the TSA agents added. "Passenger complaint says he wouldn't move when asked." The supervisor turned to Derek. "Do you have ID?" Derek handed it over. A pause. Then a longer pause. The supervisor looked again. Then again. His brow furrowed. He checked his tablet. Then cleared his throat. Mr. Langston, is this accurate? You're the executive vice president of..." Derek cut him off. "Calm. Low." "Yup." The supervisor looked stunned. "But the stewardess?" She didn't get it yet. "What difference does that make?" she snapped. "We had a protocol. We followed it." The supervisor turned. "It makes all the difference. Because Mr. Langston is not only a paid first-class passenger, he's also a senior executive at Mercury International Holdings." That silenced everyone. Even the TSA agents took a step back. Mercury International. One of the largest corporate investment firms in the country. With holdings in, among other things, this airline. The pilot, who had exited the aircraft to see what the delay was, caught the tail end of the conversation. He frowned. "Wait. What?" Derek didn't say a word. He reached into his jacket pocket again. Pulled out a second card. This one was jet black. Embossed with gold. He held it out to the supervisor. The man read the words. And immediately stepped aside. I apologize, Mr. Langston. There's been a misunderstanding." But the stewardess wasn't done. "No. This is absurd. He shouldn't have been sitting up there. People were uncomfortable." The pilot's face turned sharp. "You told me he was causing a disruption." "He was," she insisted. "He wouldn't move. He didn't need to," the supervisor said. "He was in the correct seat. With a top-tier executive clearance." Derek finally spoke. "I told you that. I showed you that. You chose not to believe it." The silence was heavy now. The kind that follows a mistake too big to walk back. The TSA agents stepped away. One of them shook his head. "Man, y'all messed up." Inside the aircraft, people had begun whispering. Word was spreading down the rows. Something wasn't right. Someone was being dragged off, wrongfully. And the wrong someone. Back at the gate, Derek calmly straightened his jacket. "I'd like to reboard now." The supervisor nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Of course." But Derek shook his head. "Not until the crew is corrected." The pilot blinked. "Excuse me?" Derek turned his gaze toward the stewardess. "And I mean that crew." She paled. The couple at the front of the plane had gone silent too. Because what none of them knew was that Derek Langston wasn't just a passenger. He was on the airline's board of oversight. The pilot stood frozen, torn between protocol and panic. The stewardess, still clutching her authority like a life vest, tried again. "I don't care what position he holds. He was rude and confrontational." Derek didn't blink. "I was silent. I answered every question. I showed you the card. The problem wasn't me. It was the way you saw me." Her voice rose. "That's not true. I didn't see anything." That's exactly it, Derek replied, cool and sharp. You saw a black man in first class and assumed mistake. Then threat. Then problem. The supervisor looked down, ashamed. One of the TSA agents muttered under his breath. Damn. The other said louder. He didn't raise his voice once. Now the passengers in the terminal were watching. Phones out. Recording. This wasn't just an argument anymore. This was news. The pilot pulled out his phone. Whispered something into it. Looked pale. Then Derek pulled out his phone. One call. One name. That's all it took. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just said, Hi. It's Langston. We've got a situation at Gate A23. Crew misconduct. Public embarrassment. Possible civil rights violations. Send someone. Pause. Yes. I'll wait. Then he put his phone away. And waited. The stewardess was rattling off excuses to the pilot now. Trying to rewrite the narrative. I was just following procedure. He was in a seat that made others uncomfortable. The couple said. The pilot cut her off. You didn't check the manifest? I glanced at it. You didn't check the name? No, because he didn't look like. And there it was. She stopped herself too late. The room went dead silent. Even the hum of the plane seemed to hush. She didn't look like what? Didn't look like an executive? Didn't look like someone who belonged? The answer hung in the air like a stain. And then the airport intercom clicked on. Paging Mr. Derek Langston. A senior representative from corporate oversight is en route to Gate A23. The stewardess's jaw dropped. Corporate oversight? The pilot stepped back, suddenly unsure of where to stand. Derek looked at her one last time. You thought you had authority. You thought you could humiliate me and the world would applaud. He stepped forward. You thought wrong. 10 minutes passed. And then she arrived. Tall. Black. Mid-40s. Braided hair. Sharp gray suit. No smile. No clipboard. Just presence. She walked straight to Derek and offered her hand. Mr. Langston? I've been briefed. He nodded. Thank you for coming. Then she turned to the pilot. I want the names of every crew member on this flight. The pilot swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Then the stewardess stepped forward. I didn't mean anything by it. I was just trying to. But the woman cut her off. Save it. She turned to Derek. Sir, would you like to file a complaint now, or wait until legal arrives? Derek looked at the row of passengers still watching. The whispering crew. The silent pilot. Then back to the corporate rep. I'll wait. Because this wasn't just about him. This was about every person who had been dismissed. Mocked. Escorted out of rooms they had every right to be in. And this time? The room wasn't going to look away. The corporate representative took out her tablet. Tapped a few times. Then turned the screen for everyone to see. On it was a full executive profile, headshot, title, biography. Derek A. Langston, Executive Vice President of Global Operations, Mercury International Holdings. Board Member. Former Air Force Logistics Commander. Civil Rights Foundation donor. Her voice was calm. Controlled. But cold. This is the man you dragged out of first class. The stewardess stared at the screen like it might catch fire. The pilot tried to recover. We had no idea. And that's the problem, the rep interrupted. You didn't ask. You assumed. Based on nothing but skin and silence. She turned to the gate staff. Who scanned his boarding pass? One of them raised a trembling hand. I did, it was valid. Group 1. VIP tier. And yet no one stopped what happened next. The rep tapped her earpiece. Security is en route for full investigation. HR will coordinate with legal. The stewardess stepped back, visibly shaking now. I swear I didn't mean. But again, she was cut off. You enforced a lie. Then doubled down when you were wrong. The rep turned back to Derek. I've spoken to legal. We're recommending a public apology and a formal reinstatement of your seat if you choose to reboard. Derek didn't respond immediately. He walked over to the window, looked out at the tarmac. The plane he'd been yanked off was still sitting there. Passengers still in their seats, still watching. Then he looked at the couple. The man was sweating now, avoiding eye contact. The woman? Stone-faced. Like if she stayed still long enough, maybe this would all pass. It wouldn't. Derek spoke without turning. How many times has this happened without cameras? Without titles? Without recourse? No one answered. He turned around slowly. You all think this ends with a statement. A press release. Maybe a retraining seminar. He paused. It doesn't. The rep nodded solemnly. We understand. But Derek kept going. Because this isn't the first time someone like me got asked to move. To wait. To disappear. He held up the original boarding pass. This said 1A. Not if approved. Not if comfortable. Not if he looks the part. Just 1A. The silence was crushing. The stewardess tried one last time. Mr. Langston, please. I was just doing my job. He looked at her. Long unblinking. No. You were doing your version of it. Then the security team arrived. And this time? They weren't here for him. The rep turned to the stewardess and quietly handed her a form. Effective immediately, your clearance is suspended pending further investigation. Please surrender your badge. She gasped. Wait, no, this is a mistake, I didn't. But she was already being escorted toward the gate. Passengers inside the plane were glued to their windows, watching the woman who once ordered someone removed now being walked off by uniformed officers. Poetic. The couple in the front row began to fidget. The rep turned to them next. We've noted your involvement. Expect a call from our legal department regarding passenger discrimination policy violations. The woman finally snapped. What? We just expressed concern. He was in our space. The rep raised an eyebrow. You mean your seat? The man tried to intervene. We didn't mean anything. But it was too late. They, too, were escorted off the plane. Now the cabin was buzzing. Not in confusion, but in clarity. They just watched the hierarchy crumble. And the man who once sat quietly in seat 1A? He now stood taller than anyone. The sun outside gate A23 had begun to dip low, casting golden streaks across the polished floor. But inside the terminal, all eyes were still on him. Derek Langston. No longer the silent man in a suit mistaken for a mistake. Now, every whisper carried his name with a different tone. Not confusion. Not contempt. But respect. The corporate rep stood beside him. Mr. Langston, the aircraft is ready when you are. The plane had been held. Delayed for over an hour. Because he was worth waiting for. He took a breath. Then walked forward. Down the jet bridge, past security, past passengers still whispering stories they tell their families. He stepped through the aircraft door. And the silence hit. Not the silence of judgment, but of realization. The couple who had claimed the seat was long gone. The crew member who had dismissed him, removed. And now? Seat 1A waited. Empty. He placed his bag gently in the overhead bin. Sat down. Fastened his seatbelt. The new stewardess, eyes kind and voice steady, leaned in. Mr. Langston, can I offer you a glass of champagne before takeoff? He smiled. Just a little. No need. I brought what I needed. She smiled back and walked off. The other passengers didn't look away now. They nodded. Some quietly mouthed, I'm sorry. Some just watched, aware they'd witnessed something bigger than a flight delay. The intercom crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We apologize for the delay. Thank you for your patience. We're ready for departure. But before the line clicked off, the captain added one more thing. And to Mr. Langston in 1A, welcome back, sir. The cabin exhaled. Not everyone understood the full story. But they understood enough. As the plane lifted into the air, Derek looked out the window. Below, the city lights flickered. And somewhere, he knew, another first-class seat was waiting for someone like him. Someone who would no longer have to fight just to sit down. They thought 1A was reserved for privilege. But that day, it belonged to justice.